Da 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 da.
So
Da
good.
da da da.
Like I feel like I'm
It
on
is.
a legit show. That's
I
so good.
mean,
I love it.
we do what we can. I mean, I even have some sound effects. I'm only going to use one of them today, but I added some sound effects now. I added some MP3s to my repertoire of things for future shows.
Love
Look
it.
out.
Awesome.
Look
I
out.
love it. Shazam.
Speaking of Shazam, speaking of Shazam, oh my goodness. Today, welcome to our People Community event where each month we like to bring aboard three members that are talking about Freedom Fight Expo. One of the members, Sarah O'Brien, could not be with us today. Sarah, we hope that you are feeling better.
Yes,
But we have Kelle Steinecke in the house and Jason Wilson. Give it up, people.
Yes.
I'm still looking for the Viking cheering one. I haven't found that yet. It's so disappointing that no one has that, but maybe I'll create my own.
There you go. Love it.
So we are here to talk about Freedom Fight Expo. I guess the first thing we're going to do, Jason, we're going to jump in with you, but it is, and you have the April one behind you on your in your background, but it is May. It is, look
The
at here,
10th, 11th, and
May
12th.
10th, 11th, and 12th. I'm just going to hide it all in front of us. We
Thank
just all
you.
went. There we go.
Yes.
May 10th, 11th, and 12th, right there. Yeah, really looking forward to this. And I mean, it's coming up. So tell us more about the show and the speakers and what to expect.
Well, Jason, I think the biggest thing that people can take away from this is that, people face situations on a daily basis and in their past as well, where they've been through traumatic events and they're not even cognizant, or they don't even realize that they've been through a trauma. This
Yeah.
current event that's coming up this weekend is for veterans of the military. And I just had a conversation the other day with a guy that went to Vietnam. He was there
Oh,
for
wow.
an entire year. Yeah, he was there for an entire year, and his job was actually to rescue fellow soldiers, not just from his branch in the Army, but the Air Force, the Marines as well. So he was shot at, and his job was to rescue these guys and run like 10 miles nonstop. I mean, throughout the entire day and part of the next day. So I mean, he had been through a tremendous amount of trauma himself, and this thing lasted him like 30 years. He couldn't sleep. So you listen to stories like this and you say, okay, my situation is not that bad. If they can get through situations like that, I can get through my trauma as well. So it's incredibly encouraging for people to listen to stories like this. These are regular people just like us. When he went to Vietnam, he was only 18 years old. I mean, he was a kid.
Yeah.
So you can come away with that. You hear these people talk about their stories, and it encourages you to talk about your trauma as well. And it's incredibly freeing. It's liberating. It's encouraging. And my friend Kelly here, she's been through talking about her own story on the show. I'll let her talk about that and her experience. But I mean, I want people to come to Freedom Fight Expo and be encouraged, and it'll let you know that yeah, my situation is bad. I've been through a depression or maybe anxiety or PTSD, but it's possible for me to overcome my situation too.
No, I love that you mentioned that. And I'm curious now, like what he was, because I've heard of, different, whether it's parajumpers or, whatever they were doing, that they would go in and this is their whole job, is just to rescue those that are on the ground. But
Right.
oh my goodness, I'm sitting here thinking about what his age must be now going into the conflict at that point in time, and how many people around him he had to see suffer, and
Yeah.
all the things that he had to go through. Uh, Kelle speaks to a lot of not only military, but people that are incredible firefighters, police, and rescue She has a fantastic show. I try to catch it as much as I can. A lot of times I'm going to replay it, and but it's such a
Replay
great
work.
show. It's such
Thank
a
you.
great show. You have
Yeah.
such great people on your show. And Ben Owens was one of my favorites that
Yes,
you
I
got
love
to
that.
talk to. Really love what he does.
Yeah.
And who was the guy with the really huge beard that you just had on? I mean, it was a couple
Cameron
shows ago.
Cushman.
Oh my goodness. Like I just sat there the whole time. Like I had to watch it twice because the first time I was just sitting there staring at his beard.
Oh,
Going,
his beard is like rad. Like I said, I made this on a couple of a couple of posts. I was saying like, his beard needs its own show. Like it's it's
like,
epic.
I can't do it. It just goes like this. It's just crazy. I look like Bozo the Clown. But we're getting way off. We're getting way off topic. We're getting way off topic, and it is serious. But I apologize for bringing in a little bit of levity. But levity is how I have dealt with a lot of the trauma in my life, in joking with my brothers and my family, and how I have talked through some of the things. Kelle, tell us more about kind of your story while we still have a good connection with Jason. I'm not knocking on wood here, but I love it.
Yeah. So this, it's crazy to think this is the third Freedom Fight Expo. I mean, talk about time flying. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And then awesome all at the same time. And thank you for the compliment on the show, The Awesome Journey. For anyone, do tune in. We do have replays, and it is very highlighted, similar to what the Freedom Fight Expo is, which is why it was such an easy thing for me to do complimentary to that, because it is focused on mental health and making mental health a regular conversation for everybody, because we're all going through something. And it just seems so silly that mental health has this just negative stigma about it, right? If you say mental health, something's wrong. And it's like, but we all have it. Like, why is it that way? We all have physical fitness or physical health, and then that's not a negative thing. But mental health just seems to be its own thing. And we just feel like the more that we can expose it, have conversations with as many people as we can, and really being vulnerable and sharing their journeys, if you will, and people would say, oh, I don't know that I can relate to a first responder or a veteran who's been in Vietnam. You may not be able to relate to the trauma, but it's the process of healing the trauma or what they go through, or being reminded of, we say this a lot, is just because you get your mental health in check. I went to treatment, I was seeing a counselor, and I was, and you hate to say done, but maybe I was done with that cycle and I was feeling great. But we're not done forever. And the best way to compare that is to say, like, we go to the gym. If we went to the gym and gotten like the best shape ever, and we're like, man, this is amazing, I'm rocking it. It's not like you can go home and never go back to the gym. You've got to go back to maintain it. Yes. And it's the same with mental health. And I think there's such power in story and how people share. And I'm telling you, after the first Freedom Fight, and I'm sure I said this last month when we were on, Jason and I were messaging right away, and I was just like, man, something so special happened in that room. And it was just, we're all so hungry, I think, for human connection. We've all been isolated. It's great to work from home, but we're human beings. We need connection. We need relationship. We need all the things. And everybody, like all the check boxes that society wants to put on all of us, left the building. Everyone was just sitting there listening to whoever was talking and holding their space. And you could physically, or I certainly could, you could physically feel it and feel the love that was there. And just knowing that somebody's going to hear that story who's on the periphery and go, oh my God, I'm not the only one that felt that way or thought those horrible thoughts. Because we're all human, and it's just the sharing the thing and knowing that we're not alone and that we are never alone. And I think there's something powerful about sharing the story of who we hold high as our heroes, our veterans and first responders. Hearing what they go through and what they struggle with, it does help the rest of us go, oh man, I never even thought about that. They're the heroes. I don't think about what they would need, or how what they go through in their career is not normal. Like, it's not normal to see what they see on a regular basis. It doesn't mean they've all seen, super massive tragedies, but they see things that the three of us will likely never see. And they see it on a regular basis. And those do have trauma effects on how we respond to them. And heroes themselves, just by their personalities, and they'll say this, I'm the hero. I'm supposed to help others. I don't need help. And they've been told that. So it's also hard to put it in the space of reaching out for help. And since you brought up Ben Owen, I want to say this because it's one of my favorite things from him. I absolutely adore him and Jess so much. And We Fight Monsters in Flanders Fields. Is he said, everybody gives us credit for being the ones that give the handout. But we're not the heroes. The ones that are the heroes are the ones that actually reach up and reach out for that handout for help. Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
They were powerful. I mean, if you didn't catch, well, there's a lot of great shows. So, I mean, you should definitely go by and, Kelly, if you have a chance, throw that into the chat. But her show is fantastic. And if you have a chance to go back and hear, especially the one there with Ben Owen, that was powerful. That was a powerful, that one I was actually there present for. And that was such a freaking powerful show. I literally, there was a couple parts where I was like, okay, I'm going to have to step for a minute because it's emotional hearing some of the things. And even though we don't share the same background, being from a place of addiction and being homeless, certainly not as long as he was, and as long as he and his wife were, and not dealing with some of the things that they got to see, but seeing that and knowing that myself and others have gone through that, it was emotional to hear what they're doing and how they're creating change. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jody. Thank you, David Cause, for being here with us that we can see. And I know, I was commenting on some stuff earlier today on my phone. If you're on your phone, we can't see it. I will catch it later and I will tag you and we'll talk through it. But getting back to you, Jason, I want to give you the opportunity to tell the audience about who's going to be in the show. And I'm going to flip this one more time so people can see it. We're going to flip this one more time. So yes, May 10th, 11th, 12th. And we are going to talk about who's on the show, who's going to be speaking.
Okay, well, first of all, a shout out to the Hounds of Business. They've been, huge supporters of ours, and so we have several of those members of the Hounds of Business. For example, Savannah Dawn, she's participating. Isabel Fortin. Who else do we have? And Scott Heathman. They're all participating.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. I know parts of all three of their stories. Probably more of Scott Heathman's than the rest, but well, Scott Heathman, then Isabel's, then Susanna Dawn's. So this is going to be very cool. So all three of them have an amazing story. Oh, that's going to be fantastic. Just those three alone, that's holy mackerel. All right. So what else is going on during the course of these days?
Yep. So apart from those three, we have Greg Martin. He was a general, a good friend of Kelly's. Kelly can tell you a little bit more about him. We also have Mike Vanzetti. Mike Vanzetti went through a terrible situation at his company where his boss was like, we don't need to know anything about your mental health condition. And if you say something about it, you can be fired. You can lose your job. So,
And this
we
was
have his
recently. I
story.
just as a little reminder. This was very recent.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. No joke.
Oh.
I know.
We also have
Sickening.
Dave Snell, Jason Jurado, and Jerry Glazer. Jerry is the one that was in Vietnam. Dan Horgan is another good friend of Kelly. He was on Kelly's show too. And another good friend of Kelly's is Barry Swarstenstein. Barry is actually living in Australia, but he's from South Africa. And he was actually in a war in South Africa. So his story is phenomenal too.
Yeah, they're incredible.
Oh.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit about Greg Martin, just because you said that, he's a major general, and he has a book called The Bipolar General. And
oh yes,
dude, he's incredible because it was fascinating. And I'm just one of those people, like I'm hungry for knowledge. You hear the word bipolar, or I used to, and I'd be like, ooh, yikes, because it's like bipolar, that's scary. But when you really know more about it and understand it, it's not that scary. It's just because we don't really understand. And I think the more that we can educate and share knowledge, Rochelle, the better off we are. And Greg's bipolarness was actually part of the reason that he achieved the amazing level of success that he did, and was able to lead troops of 10,000 in Afghanistan and such, because of his manic. His manic was amazing. And then to hear his story, because he was doing great until he finally hit the down, and then that's when everything changed, and how his process was. And then of course Michael Vanzetta, he does a lot on mental health. He has a TV channel that he does. He's going to be working Police Week, and I think it's in DC this weekend, following being on. But yeah, he recently, and I think it was 2019, just to give you how recent it was, that one of the things that he was told is, please don't tell anyone. Here he's feeling great that he was finally diagnosed, so he knows why I was feeling this way. And he was told, you'll make people feel uncomfortable. And yeah, that was a thing, that he could lose his job if he said anything. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, how did that happen this recent? There's never a time for it to be okay. And Dave Snell, who I do know, and he's been on the Awesome Journey as well. And he's former military, suffered depression, suicidal ideation. And as many of those things, I think sometimes it make people uncomfortable to talk about. I think it's so important to talk about it, because it will hit that person again on the periphery that's never going to say anything, and they're going to go, oh, thank God I'm not the only one that feels that way. And what did they do, and how did they take care of themselves, and how did they know? And so, because we all want a sense of normalcy in some way, right? We don't know. And I think the whole isolation thing, which is part of the reason why I'm so drawn into everything about mental health, and just doing as much as we possibly can to help one another, because we all need it. And whether or not it's done virtually or in person, there's still power of virtual and storytelling. And again, just knowing you're not alone. And Barry is another one. All of these people, though, I'm telling you, after they speak, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I was just so moved. And it's such a beautiful thing to share our stories, and know that you're safe to share your story, because our stories are our own. We can't undo it. It's already been done. So why fight it anymore? Because it will help someone. And I personally do believe, some of the things, I don't like going through all the shit I had to go through. But I also know that it has gifted me at a point in my life where I was able to help someone else. And then you kind of go, oh, now I see, now I get it. So, and I think the beauty of it too, being surrounded by faith, is also beautiful. I think so many people's stories, and I've been really fascinated by that, to see how they're coming out of those deep traumas and then into the triumphs, or however you want to look at it. And that there is a transition of where they find faith, Christ, God, whatever they want to say, Buddha. I mean, there's been some spirituality that has come over them. And I've found that to be such an interesting common denominator. And especially because it wasn't one, when I started having the conversations, that wasn't a prerequisite. Like, you didn't have to, but it was in everyone's story. And it's like, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you said, because I think, and I mean, I would love I'd love to hear both your opinions on this. I honestly feel, because you said this was in 2019 when they said this to him, I honestly feel that since 2020, since the world really was on fire, that, and there was so much going on in DEIAB, but just in everything. I mean, we had to rethink how we did everything when it came to business. I know for me personally, like, I had all of these clients in New York City and in Westchester gone. They're gone. They didn't like to shut down, and no, they just said, forget this. And they were done. So, I mean, it affected me, it affected my family, and it affected millions and millions of other people all around the United States and all around the world. I feel like, though, since the pandemic, there are some good things that have come from that isolation, from that trauma, from all of the things that happened, is that there is more of a sense of awareness that we've got to take care of ourselves. And that time is limited. And it's not okay anymore to do the things that we were doing before the pandemic. If anything, I think it made people aware more so of mortality. And so I don't know how you guys feel about that. I mean, you both can take turns, going through it. Kelle, I mean, you were just telling the story about it. So, I mean, obviously I'll start with you, but I mean, I feel like since the pandemic, I mean, you said this happened to this gentleman in 2019. I feel like we've come a long way in this time period. Is it enough? No. I think what you guys are doing with Freedom Fight Expo is certainly like one of the steps to do better things. And that's why we at HR4U each month have put this in our people community event to talk about it, because I think it's that important. But I mean, what do you think? Have we come far? Have we come, obviously not far enough, but have we come far?
I mean, I think we have so much farther to go, I believe, but I believe that it's become the focus of a lot of people. A lot of people are open to having the conversations now, are open to sharing their stories, more so than I think before. I can speak for me personally. I was a corporate America girl my entire career, and I got laid off for the first time in 2020. Freaking devastated me, because I could not get a job. And for me, it was introspection of, I didn't realize, one, how much of my own personal identity was wrapped into my career. And two, it gave me time to sit back and think about, what do I want to do with my life? The introspection of self, and where do I want my career? Do I want to be working 80, 100-hour weeks anymore? Who do I want to be working with? What kind of impact am I truly making? Am I really living in my purpose? And I personally was struggling big time. I was definitely not being able to get hired, impact, and being isolated like everyone else. And I really started the whole thing of doing the awesome journey and talking with Christy and making that come to life, was honestly as a part of my own mental health. I was like, I need something that I'm accountable for, that I got to show up for, and that I'm sharing and helping give back. Because I believe, and I've been this way my whole life, is I believe giving back does serve us in a way that is so much different than going to a job and getting a paycheck. And giving to community and helping community. And I feel like what's happened, or what I've been seeing, is people are so much more about that. And I think people probably more in our age bracket, maybe a little bit, we're not thinking about, we want to survive and be able to pay our rents, don't get us wrong. But I think our goals look a lot different. It is, how can we help people? How can we sustain it? How can we monetize enough to help more people to do, instead of, dude, when can I get that next raise? Because I want to get that bonus. And how many more times do I have to work? I want to get that next position. I personally was so focused on a goal in a business that it wasn't about what was all around me. And I think it's taken me back to really look at what matters. And I did lose somebody during that time period very close to me. And all I can remember is the last 2 weeks I spent with him in the hospital. And all I was like, first of all, he didn't say one friggin' word about, God, I wish I could go back to work one more day, because it would be amazing. And he was a police officer for 33 years he served. He just wanted to spend the time telling everybody he loved what he wanted to say before he left. And during that 2 weeks, I also saw him find Christ. He was one of the crankiest old dudes I ever knew in my entire life. And I mean that in the most loving way. And anyone that knows him knows that that's just the way he was. He was so kind that last 2 weeks to everyone, and was so grateful for all what everyone did for him. And he was ready to go. And it broke my heart, but I also was like, what a gift that I was able to be there. Because if it would have been 5 years earlier, I'd have been working 80, 100 hours a week, and I wouldn't have been able to be there every day and spend the time. But it was something that it does make you go, man, what does really matter in life? And what is it that we're all doing? And why is it we're all guaranteed the same destination, and we're all guiding each other there? And goodness, why don't we just have some empathy and compassion for one another, and be kind and help. So I'm off my soapbox now, Jason.
No, that's fantastic. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Jason, I want to give you the opportunity, because, I asked the question, but I mean, and you are in Colombia, but you're from the U.S. What did you see during this time period? Do you agree with, us that, things have started to go in a more positive direction when it comes down to people's view of work and mental health?
Well, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what Kelly said, I think that people have taken much more stock and inventory on the kinds of people that they spend time with. People took a look at their marriages and, all kinds of other relationships that they had. And they said, okay, do I really want to spend this much time with this person? Or should I leave this person and start another relationship? I think that happened a lot in people's marriages. So, there were a lot of situations where, you would go to work and not see this person until maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night. So you really didn't spend any time with this person, but the pandemic forced everybody to spend more time together. And the more time they spent with each other, they said, you know what? I don't even know this person, and I'm not even sure if I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. I think that a lot of people saw that situation as, maybe I made a mistake here. So I think that
we had both sides. We had a whole bunch of babies. We had a whole bunch of people that made babies.
Yeah.
And then we had a whole bunch of people who were like, I don't know that I really know you.
Yeah. Right. Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah. So I think that it's a positive and a negative, right? Just like you said. But I think from here on out, people pay a lot more attention to the kind of person that they want to be in a relationship with, and the kinds of values that they have. Okay, does this person embody all the values that I'm looking for? I think that that's really, really important when you're thinking about getting into a long-term relationship. So part of our mission too with Circle of Friends Club is that we want to do some kind of event where we can help people to connect. Because one of the biggest things too, Jason, when it comes to mental health, that's really, really destroying people right now is loneliness.
Oh, amen. So epidemic.
Yeah. So we want to do something about that as well.
Yeah.
So can you share some of the ideas that you're thinking about, you guys are talking about? Or are you, well, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready
Well,
for that yet.
well, it's going to be a surprise, Chase, and I
All
can't really
right.
give
All right. All right. You did say earlier that you are willing to share some secrets about what you're doing with the men's group. So I want to give you that chance right now to do that.
Okay, something interesting happened over this past weekend. Um, we did the event, and it just ended up where one of my good friends from school attended the event, and he was the only person. And it
Oh,
was
man.
good in the sense because he had the opportunity to talk about a lot of issues that he had in his marriage. His wife is going through cancer right now and chemotherapy. He has a lot of mental health issues that are going on, not just with her, but him too. He
Mhm.
was even at the point of suicide and having suicidal thoughts. So, you know, if he had been surrounded by a group of guys, you know, probably 8 to 10 people, he wouldn't have had that opportunity to share those things. So it was good in that sense. But afterwards,
Yeah.
you know, I had a conversation with the Lord, and he told me, he said, Jason, I know you want to make a huge difference with people in their relationships, but you have to start with the ladies. I said, okay, that's what we're going to do. And
Okay.
I think a lot of women agree, you know, they need help in their relationships, and have some tools and tips on how they can communicate better with the men. I think if we can heal the women, then we can heal the relationships. So that's what we're
All
going to do.
right.
We are going to start we're going to start a women's group in a couple of weeks.
Well, and I think the
Okay.
important thing of that is because, I mean, I couldn't help but think when you said that, because I don't know why when I'm with the two of you, like nostalgia overload comes over me, but I couldn't help but think right away of LL Cool J. Um, it is love, Cool Jason.
Yeah, yeah.
But part of the thing with communication, truthfully, was all about, it's about connection, and whether or not it is connection in a personal relationship, whether it is a romantic relationship, a business relationship, whatever. Because that is another thing, you know, when people were sitting at home full time with someone else, it was like, I don't even know what to say to this person for all these hours that I sit next to them, because we actually have to have conversation. It's not just passing each other in the kitchen before dinner and then getting the kids to bed before we can finally wrap it up. So
Everybody's routine was broken.
dramatically, so dramatically. I mean, I can't relate to so much of it because I did have, at the time before I was laid off, there was a couple gals in my office. You know, their kids were now at home and they were expected to do all this work stuff. And they were like, well, I have my kids now home homeschooling. I can't do these calls like I used to. And it was quite awful. And I will say the guy that we worked with at the time, he was very unempathetic or compassionate, and he was like, I don't care. You figure out how you get on this call. And it's like, man, you need to bend a little bit here. Come on. The world is changing.
Yeah,
But
in case you haven't seen, in
Yeah.
case you know.
Yes. Yes. And our office building, it was like in the heart of downtown Scottsdale. And it was like, dude, look out our window. It's a ghost town, which is so creepy. Like, it was so eerie. We all remember that. But so the whole point is about connecting and communicating. So I do agree, because I was going to tune into the call on Saturday for the men's group, because I said, Jason, I just want to hear what they're talking about, what the curriculum is. I just kind of want to. Then I was like, oh, I don't want to, because then guys, if they see a woman is in the room, because this is a true fact, they won't communicate the same way, because a woman is in the room, and that's just a fact.
Yeah.
There is an incredible app from the Here Brotherhood that is all for men and mental health, and it is done phenomenal. I think they just celebrated their 1 year. They were also on the awesome journey, and they're doing amazing things helping. But it's because men speak differently when they're around men, and the same with women. We speak different when there's no men in the room. It's just fact. So that was part of it, but truly about connection and how we communicate just overall, and how it impacts all of our relationships.
This is interesting that you say this, because I'm part of a men's group, and this is new for me. I started at the end of last year talking for the first time in almost 60 years about my addictions, about being homeless, about some of my childhood trauma. I mean, that was just stuff in my family, it's been ingrained in me. We just don't talk about. You don't talk about, especially in public. You do not do that. My family is very like, and I've shared this before that, I've had people block me. I've had people like send me the nasty gram of you shouldn't be talking about this stuff. This is, where is this coming from? Blah, 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 blah. But my point to all of this is I'm in this men's group that I joined. I've been in it now. This is my second month. And it's a small group, and how we communicate together is really interesting. The person who runs the group also has a women's group. And for the first time, we're going to have one session at the end of the month together. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm purposely, because I know some of the ladies that are in that, and I'm very comfortable with them. Like I am with you, Kelly, like I am with Sarah. Yeah. So I feel like they can say something and I can say something and it's going to stay right there. But it's going to be interesting to watch that dynamic because I actually agree with you. I think it's just natural. It's just a natural thing that, when men are talking to men and, whatever. And then when they're talking to women, there's this divide. But when you put them together, I don't know that everybody's as honest and forthright, and we're kind of guarded, and I don't want them to view me this way. And so I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. And I'm really thinking positively that, okay, because I know some of the people and because they know me and they, possibly know the other guys in our group, that we're going to be able to move past some of those biases and stigmas that normally are around. I'm really hopeful.
I'm going to be interested to hear about that one.
I will tell you, because I think it's not even a week later that we'll be on another one of these, doing our thing, talking about June, baby.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We were talking about how this is flying by. It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Thank you so much for David and Jody and Melissa Robinson, Wine Miller. Say hello to your hubby. And Rochelle, thank you for coming out. I really want to kind of take the last portion of what we have in time and just hone in for those that came late or anybody that's joining us that skims through this message. But what was Freedom Fight Expo created for? What do you hope to, and I want to hear from both of you, what do you hope to get out of this? Other people to get out of it and for you to get out of it? Because you're creating something, it's your baby in some ways that you care about it intimately. And I know that you have some desires for yourself out of this. So what do you want to get out of this yourself? What do you want others to get out? And I'll start with Kelly.
Oh, I was going to say start with Jason since he was.
Ladies first. I have no problem.
That's right. That's right.
No problem. You know me, I'll talk, so it's not like it's a problem. So, I mean, truly, Jason, it is a matter of making any conversation about mental health be a regular conversation. Like, let's remove the stigma. Let's not be embarrassed about it. We all have it. We all struggle. We all go through things from time to time. Doesn't mean that we're all have to be diagnosed with something to have issues with mental health. We can lose a job, we can lose a relationship. All of those things are issues that we go through and we struggle during those times, and we can get stuck in it. It helps to hear others and also hear opportunities of what does this type of therapist do? What is this type of therapist? Because that can be very overwhelming, and offering different tools. So just really creating a community of safety to share stories, but also just you don't have to come and share your story if you don't want to, just listening. I know a lot of people just need to be on the periphery and hear some things and get some messages, to know that they're not alone. Because like you said earlier, loneliness is a massive epidemic, and it still is. So anyone who's hearing from their home who doesn't get out enough, and again, just to remind them that, hey, I'm not alone. And what do I want out of it personally? One, what it does for me, and this is what I say about giving back, it feeds my soul beyond what any amount of money could ever do. And that's a truth. It helps me. It helps me continue to heal. And we said this, I think, before we came on camera. And I've said this a lot of other times, or maybe I did say it earlier, I can't remember. But our mental health journey doesn't stop after we go get treatment. If you are someone who does go to a coach or a therapist, whatever the situation is, we don't finish it and then go, "Oop, I'm done. I'm good for the rest of my life." And I say that for me. I have been on and off seeing a counselor for a traumatic grief, a domestic violence relationship, so trauma, PTSD. Things come up later in life that you're kind of like, man, where did that come from? Because you don't realize, you don't heal maybe everything all at one time. And again, I think that's such an important thing. It's okay if a decade later you're going, where the hell did that come from? And why am I feeling this way? But knowing that it's a journey, and then there's always going to be something, and it's okay. And there are people that you can reach out to. And we like to remind everybody too, hey, if you haven't heard from someone on social media in a while and they've gone quiet, send them a message. I do that quite often, because it could be that one message. I think all three of us know people who a text message quite literally saves someone's life. And it does make a difference of just reaching out and knowing that you care. And just being able to look at each other with more empathy and compassion, and remove all these stupid boxes that society wants to put on us, because we're all human and we all need the same things, and that's to be wanted, needed, and loved. So I'll leave it right there.
Oh, and that's perfect. That's Susanna Dawn's big thing. Let's break out of boxes. I love it. So, you were talking about her being one of the people that are going to be speaking. So let's break out of some boxes, man.
Yes.
Jason, what is Freedom Fight Expo to you? Man, I know this like the back of my hand, but I want you to tell people, what does it mean to you? What do you hope to get out of it? And what do you hope that other people will get out of it?
Well, before the Lord gave me the idea to create this in the first place, I was in a group of entrepreneurs, and the whole premise of it was to help us arrive at a why statement as to the thing that we wanted to create to make a huge difference in the world. And a guy asked me, like towards the end of this program, I was in a private one-on-one meeting, and he asked me questions about my mother. And I told him that, she had suffered from depression for 13, 14 years. And I was in situations where I had to leave Columbia, fly back to Atlanta to help her with her condition several times. And during that whole process, I felt completely hopeless. I knew it was a spiritual situation that she was dealing with, but nobody was dealing with it from that standpoint. They were just looking at it from a medical viewpoint. And I knew it was incorrect. Of course, mental health is something that takes place in the mind, but it's actually a spiritual battle that people are fighting in the mind. So he asked me, Jason, if none of that took place, that whole situation with your mom, what is it that you would want other people to get from the thing that you want to create? And I said, well, if none of that took place, I would have been happy, joyful, and at peace. And he said, well, isn't that what you want for other people? And I said, absolutely. So that's what I want for people that attend Freedom Fight Expo, and for everyone that is a part of Circle of Friends Club and everything that we create into the future. That's what I want people to have, that they come to our events, that they see a way out. And that's the thing about mental health too. They're in these situations and they think to themselves, I can't get out of this. There's no way out. And it's not actually their thoughts. This is coming from a spiritual dimension that is not of God. I'm just going to leave it there. But, there is a way out. And if you have some sense of spirituality, a faith in God, like Kelle said, you may not believe in Jesus, but believe in something, have faith in
Mhm.
something bigger than you. I think that will give you a basis as to a way that you can get free from these situations, depression, PTSD. I had a conversation with the guy that went to the Vietnam War, and he said when he returned to the States, this is years later after the war,
Yeah.
he'd be walking down the street and see spirits of the guys that he saved in Vietnam. Well, actually, the ones that died in Vietnam. And he would constantly be reminded of this in
Oh,
daytime as well as in his dreams.
mm,
So these are not spirits of God. These are spirits that come from the enemy. So I want
Uh,
people to be aware that what they're fighting is, in most cases, something that has never walked the earth.
uh,
And it's heavy stuff, but nobody's talking about this, Jason. When it comes to mental health, there is a spiritual aspect of this that nobody wants to address. And through Freedom Fight Expo, we can address this through the stories that people tell. They can come away from that and see that, what, I need to have a relationship with God. And that's what I want people to have.
and that may be different for everybody. It may be a different kind of relationship, and it may be with a different presence or entity. But I get I get what you're saying, and it's interesting that no matter where you go, the very first step in a 12-step program is talking about the fact that you recognize that you are powerless over
mm,
your
Yeah.
addiction, and that you have to rely on a higher power, whatever that may be for you, but you
mhm,
have to rely on a higher power to give you help because you are at the end of your rope. That is like step one.
mhm.
Step one of 12 is I am powerless over my addiction. It is controlling me, and I need the help of a higher power.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so, yeah,
Amen.
it's incredible to think about the fact that we we all are running around doing our thing, and at a moment's notice, stuff can creep up and can happen and can change and challenge us in our lives. And what we do to recognize it, to deal with it, to move past it, move through it, and to, in some cases, befriend it. I think about the things for myself where I needed to befriend some of it so that I was okay with the person staring back at me while I'm moving other things away from me. So I think there's a lot to be said about the power of spirituality in some shape, form, or fashion around you and around the discussion of mental health, because people will give up.
Yeah.
People will not take step one. They will not take step one, which is, I can't do this anymore. I've got to have help. That's really step one. Whether
Mhm.
you're in a 12-step program, a 4-step program, or a 1-step program, the first step is you've got to get help. So what I want to make sure that as we are talking about this, and each month we come back to talk about this and we do more of this, I want to make sure that the viewers understand that whatever we can do to help you, put you in a path where you could take step one, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we do that.
Yes.
And so all of our information, you can find a lot of information. I know from about me for sure, out on LinkedIn, but I am an open book. You'll see a lot of my link tree stuff and all that out and about. I am happy to have a discussion with somebody. I know we can get you in to speak with other people, but don't sit and suffer in silence. Do not sit and think that you are by yourself, that you are all alone. You are not. And there is help. So I think that is something I love that you said it earlier, Kelle. Please make sure that you're checking on other people. If you're in a good space, please make sure that you're checking in on other people, because you don't know what you don't know. And when I don't see people around or I haven't heard from them, whatever it is, I try to find a way to contact them, because usually you can if you look hard enough, whether it's through social media some way, or you might have their number and you've forgotten it. But reach out to people that you don't see regularly to make sure that they are all right. Oh my goodness, we are literally, this has been incredible. And you have so many fantastic people coming up. We've had some other people join us towards the end here. Thank you, Dr. New, for jumping in as well.
Hey, Dr. New.
Love all the people from the Hounds joining in. Thank you so much for everybody doing that. I want to give you guys a last final thoughts, anything that you'd like to say before we close out the session. And I'm going to throw this up. I'll throw this up at the very end as well, but I want to throw this up again one more time. I'm going to throw this up because your banner is from April. So this is May 10th, 11th, and 12th. Jason was having some technical difficulties when he was having many. So we're just glad that he made it through the entire show, and we can understand that.
I know. That's the first time. Yeah. So my wrap is
it's rainy season down here in Columbia. I'm so sorry.
Look out.
This
it's all right. It all worked out. So my final thoughts are, everybody, join us on Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. There is a registration. We'll share the link in the comments, and you can certainly find it on Freedom Fight Expo page to do your registration to get the login information. It is free to attend. Please do join us. Just pop in and see what it's about. Share it with your friends, anyone who you think that needs a little bit of inspiration, motivation, and hope in their life. And again, we just want to touch as many people as we can, because we know that a lot of people just need to be held. And I do believe that that's what we do in this space. So we hope to see you there.
Well, that's awesome. Jason, any final things?
Yes, I just want everybody to know, no matter what it is that you're facing, there is a way out.
Amen.
Yes, you can come to us on this weekend and be inspired, like Kelle said, encouraged, motivated, and get some tools and tips also that can help you in your situation. You're not alone, and we're here for you.
Well, we thank everybody for coming out tonight, this morning. Somebody came in and said good morning, and I was like, oh man, where are you? So thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for being here with us. We will catch you next time, but we want to give it up one last time. Jason in the house. Thank you very much for joining us. This has been our People Community event, and we are so thrilled to have them and be part of Freedom Fight Expo and support this. Take care, everybody.